In this video, we're going to use our model of statistical discrimination to think about the likely effects of ban-the-box policies on employment rates for young Black and Hispanic men without college degrees, which is to say, for the group of workers in the economy who have the highest likelihood of having a criminal record. And to do so, let's remember that the goal of ban-the-box policies is to limit the information that employers have about potential employees' criminal records during the early resume screening process. So in order to think about this, why don't we think about the problem facing, let's say, an HR representative who's screening resumes in order to choose who to offer an in-person interview to. And to do this, we could imagine that the goal of an HR representative is to offer in-person interviews to candidates that are most likely to be hired, given that they get the in-person interview. In other words, when you have a limited set of information about an employee, potential employee, and you're offering them a relatively costly interview, you want to offer those interviews to the employees that are most likely to reveal information to you in the interview that makes you want to hire them. Okay, so that means that your objective as a hiring manager is to try to offer interviews only to applicants who have a sufficiently high chance of getting a job offer if interviewed. Right, so we could say that you'll interview if the probability of an offer, given that you're interviewed, is greater than some threshold. Let's say 40%, right? Just to pick a number out of a hat. Now, to keep this simple, let's imagine that this particular hiring manager knows that their firm doesn't care at all about the race of applicants, but does care whether an applicant has a criminal record. So let's say in particular that the likelihood of being offered a job, given that you're interviewed, is significantly lower if you have a criminal record than if you don't. So we could say that the probability of an offer, if interviewed and a record, is, let's say, 1 in 10, whereas the probability of an offer, if you're interviewed and you have no record, is higher, let's say 1 in 2. So if we're looking at a pre-ban-the-box world, right, it's very clear what's going to happen here. We're going to give an interview to everyone who has no criminal record, and we're going to offer an interview to anybody who has a criminal record, right? On the other hand, let's imagine that ban-the-box is implemented, and while the firm still doesn't directly care about the race of their applicants, they know that a larger fraction of potential Black applicants have a criminal record than do white applicants. So we could say, for instance, we've got white and Black. Let's say that only 1 in 10 white applicants has a criminal record, whereas 4 in 10 Black applicants to this particular job has a criminal record. And I should note, just to be clear here, I'm completely making up numbers. These have no relationship to the real world, right? So what this is going to imply is that 9 out of 10 white applicants are going to have no criminal record, whereas 6 out of 10 Black applicants are going to have no criminal record. So now we can use this information exactly the same way that we use the probability of having a rich friend with the yacht salesman. We can use this information to figure out the likelihood that a given white or Black applicant is going to be offered a job if they're offered an interview. Right? So what we can do is we can say the likelihood of being offered a job is going to be the likelihood of being offered a job if you do have a criminal record times your likelihood of having a criminal record plus the likelihood of being offered a job if you don't times your likelihood of not. So for white applicants, right, they've got a 1 in 10 chance of having a criminal record. And if they have a criminal record, they're going to be offered a job with a probability of 1 in 10. Whereas if they don't have a criminal record, right, they've got a 9 in 10 chance of not having a criminal record. And if they don't, they'll be offered a job with a probability of 1 in 2. So altogether, right, this is going to be 1% plus 45% is 46 out of 100. or 46%, right? On the other hand, for black applicants, we'll do the exact same thing. We'll say that the likelihood that a black applicant has a criminal record is 4 in 10. And if they do, they have a 1 in 10 chance of being hired, right? The likelihood that the black applicant doesn't have a criminal record is 6 in 10, in which case they have a 1 in 2 chance of being hired. So their overall probability of being hired is going to be 4 in 10 times 1 in 10, which is 4%, plus 6 in 10 times 1 in 2 is 30%. So it's going to be 34 out of 100 equals 34%, right? So if we had this hiring standard where we say we'll hire anyone who has more than a 40% chance, or we'll interview anyone who has more than a 40% chance of being given a job offer, conditional on getting an interview, what Ban the Box would do is it would shift our policy from interviewing only those without a criminal record to having a policy of only interviewing white applicants, right? Because white applicants are sufficiently likely to be offered a job that it's worth interviewing them, whereas black applicants are sufficiently unlikely to be offered a job that it's not worth interviewing them. Now, it's worth pointing out, though, that this specific prediction comes out of the numbers that I happened to choose, right? If instead of saying that it's worth interviewing anyone with more than a 40% chance of being hired, let's say that I said it was worth interviewing anyone with more than a 30% chance of being hired. In that case, what I would do is I would say, well, it still wouldn't have been worth it to interview anyone with a criminal record, but now it would be worth it to interview black and white applicants. So the one thing we can say unambiguously here is that this is going to be a policy that we expect to help those with a criminal record and hurt those without a criminal record, but particularly to help white applicants with a criminal record and to hurt black applicants without a criminal record. And the way that we can see that is, for a white applicant with a criminal record, our likelihood as a hiring manager to think that you're going to be given a job offer has gone up from 1 in 10 to 46%, right? 10% to 46%. Whereas for white applicants without a record, it's dropped from just 50% to 46%, right? So very, very small effect on our perception of white applicants without a record, because we're still going to assume that most white applicants don't have a record. Big effect on our perception of white applicants with a record. Exact opposite for black applicants, right? For black applicants with a criminal record, we've increased our likelihood of thinking we'll give you a job offer from 10% to 34%, so smaller than the increase we see for white applicants with a criminal record. And we've decreased our likelihood, our beliefs about how likely we are to hire you if you're a black applicant without a criminal record from 50% down to 34%, right? So unambiguous predictions here is that this is going to help everyone with a criminal record, it's going to hurt everyone without a criminal record, and that the effect is going to be bigger. We're going to help white applicants with a criminal record more than we'll help black applicants with a criminal record, and in contrast, we'll hurt black applicants without a record more than we'll hurt white applicants without a record. The degree to which one is going to balance out the other, though, is going to depend on things like just how big the disparities are between our likelihood of having a record if we're white and black, and what hiring standard or what interview standard the firm happens to use. So it's also important to remember that all of this is just going to tell us the effect of Ban the Box on the likelihood that an applicant is given a job interview. There's another step to thinking about how this is going to affect an applicant's likelihood of getting a job offer. So if we want to know the effect of Ban the Box on employment of young, less educated minority men, we're going to want to think about whether the interviews that those with criminal records gain from a policy like Ban the Box are going to result in as many job offers as the interviews that those without criminal records lose as a result of Ban the Box. So in this very simple model, right, we know that of those who have criminal records, only 1 in 10 are going to end up getting a job offer. And the reason for this is that once they get the interview, their potential employers are perfectly able to run a criminal background check and find out about their criminal history, right? Criminal history is only concealed at this first stage, not at the second stage of the interview. So 1 in 10 of the interviews given to those with criminal records will result in a job offer. On the other hand, 1 in 2 of the interviews that are lost by those who don't have criminal records would have resulted in a job offer. So what this is going to indicate, or what this is going to suggest is even if we've got relatively symmetric gains and losses among young minority men with and without criminal records, as a result of Ban the Box in interviews, we're likely to have bigger losses of job offers than we have gains in job offers. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to think about how to take this theory and actually estimate the effect of Ban the Box on young minority men and young white men after the implementation of these policies.